This is the School Success Podcast, a podcast for school leaders to learn from other school leaders what's working and what's not, and to get inspiration and encouragement, as well as strategies to grow school enrollment, connect with families, retain teachers, recruit teachers, and everything in between. You guys are heroes, and I cannot thank you enough for pouring into this next generation that's coming behind us. My goal is you will take at least one thing away from every episode that you can take back to your school to make it better than it is right now. Please enjoy the School Success Podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the Herzog Foundation.
Time for school.
Hey, School Success Makers. Welcome to another edition of the School Success Podcast. I'm your host, Mitchell Slater, and I'm joined by a new friend out of Chandler, Arizona, Kristy Phillips, who is the NSLP Administration Manager for Vertex Education. And I came across them, honestly, a few months ago, and then heard about this program that the United States government has that they are specifically like experts in and helping you take advantage of. And I was like, well, we got to have an episode on the podcast just for this, because it was kind of my first time. I kind of heard about it, but I didn't really know any details. And when I had my discovery call with them to kind of hear about what this was, I was like, well, we need to have a podcast on this so that you, our guests, know about this program. And then if you want to take advantage of it on your own, you can, or if you needed help, Vertex Education is there to help you take advantage of this government program to help with feeding your students at your school. We're going to dive into all of that. But before we do, of course, I want to pass it off to our guest to introduce herself. So Kristy, welcome to the podcast today.
Thanks, Mitchell. I'm super excited to be here and share the National School Lunch Program and its benefits for everybody.
It's going to be fun. But before we dive into all the nitty-gritty fun, I always start with the same question that nobody's expecting because I don't give you a heads up about it. And it is this. If I was to visit Chandler, Arizona, what would you say, Mitchell? You got to eat this and do this when you come to Chandler, Arizona.
When you come to Chandler, Arizona, you need to find a really good little Mexican carniceria in a strip mall because they have the best tacos ever. Totally different from Taco Bell or Mexican chain restaurants, things like that. So just above and beyond, the best little taco stands or carnicerias are the thing to do. And then as far as to do, I would say right now it's still super hot here, so there's not a lot to do outside, but Chandler is known for spring training. And so come spring, it is hustling and bustling with spring training, and it is the best time of year to catch baseball. Even if you're not a baseball fan, spring training games are so much fun, and you just get to enjoy our beautiful weather in March.
Perfect. So I'm in a town of spring training for the New York Mets. We're down in Port St. Lucie, and the New York Mets are here for spring training. And it is the vibe. The vibe is pretty cool because it's like, yes, we're not a big town, but you got the Mets there, and all these people come down from New York for it. So I can attest that'll probably be a fun time because I'm pretty sure multiple teams are there in that area for their spring training, right?
Yes, we have. And don't quote me on this, but I'm going to say we have at least 12 to 15 teams in the Phoenix metro area that are here for spring training.
Good. I'm a Cubs fan. I think the Cubs are in Arizona for their spring training.
Yes, the Cubs are in Mesa, right by my house, actually.
Ah, cool. Jealous. That's pretty cool.
Yep.
Well, as we dive in today, before we dive into the actual lunch program details, I'd love to hear a little bit about Vertex Education and what you specifically are doing with them. And then we'll dive into like the actual subject nitty gritty of the lunch program.
Yeah, of course. So Vertex Education, we are a charter school and school management company. So we love to partner with schools. It can be charter schools, public schools, private schools. And we like to deliver solutions for any problem that school has. So it can be human resources, talent acquisition, national school lunch program, payroll, kind of all of the back office things. Especially schools that are a little bit smaller, like charter schools, private schools. We know that the administrators wear several different hats, and they could be doing everything from facilities to the education, to operations, to the lunch program, to everything. And so we like to partner with these schools to take some of those hats off of their head so they can concentrate on what's important, and that's the education of the students and running their school to be as safe and efficient as possible. We want the school leaders to be able to focus on their mission, and we focus on all the back office side for them.
All the stuff that they definitely don't want to do, probably.
Yeah,
That's
not
perfect.
why they got into education.
Exactly. So this lunch program, so those that maybe they've never even heard of the lunch program before, let's talk about what is it and how exactly does it work before we before we dive into like how they can actually do it and use it. Let's talk about what is that program.
Yeah, so great question. The National School Lunch Program is a federally funded program that is governed by the USDA, so the United States Department of Agriculture. It is available to all public, private, and charter schools in the United States and territories. Um, and basically, what it was founded in 1946, and it is a program to help those students that maybe don't have the best situations at home. They come from a lower socioeconomic status, and maybe their families just aren't able to afford to pack them a lunch every day or buy lunch every day, different things like this. So this program allows those families to apply for benefits for free and reduced lunch or breakfast. And so by applying, if they've come under a certain income threshold, they can receive free lunch and breakfast every day, or they can receive reduced lunch and breakfast. The reduced price for breakfast is 30 cents. The reduced price for lunch is 40 cents. And so it relieves this burden of having to find their next meal. And we find that a lot of students, sometimes school is the only time that they eat lunch. And so they look forward to this every day. And if the school's not offering lunch, it could be super difficult for these kids. And then what I always like to say too is that full bellies equal full minds. So we want to make sure that our kids have that nutritional foundation so that they can learn during the day as well. And so this program helps those schools that have a higher percentage of those students that may not be able to afford lunch. And kind of in a nutshell, the program offers these reimbursements, and in return, you follow the nutritional guidelines that the USDA has set forth. So the school follows, there's a certain amount of calories, a certain amount of sodium, fat, different things like that, sugars that you follow during the menu. And as long as you are following those guidelines that the USDA sets, they reimburse you per student for those meals that you serve. And so it's a super cool way to be able to feed your students and not have it come out of your operational funds. You can use those funds to cover other things in your school, education, other departments, and you can have a completely self-sufficient food program through this program.
And is it just for lunches, or is this also could be breakfast or snacks that the kids can have at school as well?
That's a great question. So there's the National School Lunch Program, which includes lunch and the school breakfast program. There's also at-risk snack programs. There's at-risk supper programs. There's the child and adult program that you can use if you're a daycare center or a preschool. So there's different programs for every scenario that you could imagine.
And so for those that are hearing this, obviously there are different schools. There's charter schools that are listening in, there's Christian schools that are listening in. And this literally applies to kind of to any school. It could be a school of 5 students or a school of 1,500 students, really. It just depends on the makeup of who those students and those families are.
Any school can apply for it. Now, it's going to make a difference. Your enrollment is going to make a difference. If you're a school of, only 5 or 10 privates, a private school of only 5 or 10 or homeschool, things like that, it's probably not going to be very beneficial for you to do the entire program. However, there are also other alternatives like the free milk program. So you could just do milk, or in that situation, you could do the snack program or the CACFP program, which is that child and adult program that I was talking about for daycares. So a lot of at-home daycares will follow that program as well.
Is this something that they have to hire out a company to come deliver food that's already pre-made, or is this saying, hey, we're going to give you all the food and you have to have a team in-house that's going to actually make all the food?
That's a great question. You can do it either way. So we work with schools that cook completely from scratch on their campus. They do scratch meals. They have a group in the kitchen. They have cooks, servers, cashiers, the whole 9 yards. They get their food brought in from a vendor that provides the ingredients, and they cook everything from scratch for their students. We have schools that they have a vendor bring in food that's hot and ready to serve. So they're ready to make or ready to serve meals that are the school then just has to hand out to the students, or we have schools that work with full food service management companies that they come in, they provide the food, they cook the food on site for you, they serve the food, they run the whole program for you operationally. So you can do anything that works best for your school, for your finances, for your location. A lot of times it depends on the location of the school, the staffing of the school, the enrollment, things like that. So it kind of runs the gamut.
Okay, so there's a lot of moving parts to this. I know, obviously, if you have a huge school, a lot of students, is this something that you found most schools can handle on their own when it comes to, like, I guess what I'm thinking about, okay, all right, if I have to buy all these ingredients and I have to do this, I have to obviously hire more staff to come for it. And I'm assuming the government's not helping hire staff for funding, so they're just helping to truly cover the cost of the food. Is that correct?
That's correct. The reimbursements that you get from the government should cover most of your costs. It should cover the cost of your food. It should cover the cost of your labor, everything like that. So cooking on site, is your food price is going to be a little bit lower because you're buying the ingredients and you're producing them, which leaves you room to have that extra labor cost. When you're using a full food service management company or a vendor that's bringing in ready-made meals, the cost of that's going to be a little bit more expensive, but then you have less labor costs. So it kind of evens out either way. The approximate reimbursement that you get for every lunch is anywhere between $4 and $6, depending on where you are in the country. So for a lunch, that should easily cover the costs for feeding a student, between $4 and $6. And when you think about it, you can't even go to McDonald's now and get a lunch for between $4 and $6. Yeah. So it's a really great program.
So obviously there's some schools, and we've talked to many that, cash on hand is maybe not as high as it should be for them, but I'm assuming they're going to need to put out the money first and then wait for the good old government to reimburse them, which might take a while. I would love to kind of hear, like, what does that look like? Is it the school putting out their money, and then how long till they get reimbursed, if that is how that works?
Yeah, no, that's another great question. So oftentimes you do have to put out the money first to set up the program. You have to, make your first food orders. You have to, purchase any equipment that you would need, things like that. A lot of schools apply for grants to do these things. There are some, new charter school grants. We work with charter schools that have received a new charter school grant, and they use that grant to help set up their meal program. There's equipment grants that you can sign up for, different things like that. Others raise money from donors. They have angel donors that's what they want to do, is they want to provide meals for their kids. So they help with those startup costs. The cool thing is that once you start receiving those reimbursements from the state, if you're doing your paperwork correctly and you're submitting your reimbursements and your claims every month, you're going to get that check every month repeatedly into your bank account, and you can start building that back. So any funds that you receive from the state for your child nutrition program, those can only be used in your child nutrition program. You can't use those in other spaces for your school. So that's why it's super important that you have a really good kind of running tally of what your expenses are, and then using those reimbursements to cover those expenses. Because at the end of the year, if your food program is not in the black, and you do end up in the red, you do have to pull from your general fund to bring it back to even. So we work super hard to make sure that those reimbursements are covering all the costs. But yes, up front, you do have to put some money out at first, but those reimbursements should be able to eventually build back up and cover those costs if you're not able to get those grants or things like that.
So no crab legs or filet mignon for those first few orders, huh?
No, probably not.
Okay, man. So with these schools that can do this, not every student is eligible for this program. It's only, is it only certain students, and then who is eligible for it? Because that's a lot to manage, I'm sure, for a school to keep track of who can get it, who can't.
Yeah, so every student can come through the lunch line, whether or not they are eligible for free or reduced lunch. If you have students that are not eligible for free or reduced lunch, they are still welcome to come through your line as well. We will never deny a student that comes through the line for lunch, no matter what their eligibility is. We also will never make it known what a child's eligibility is. You never want to identify a student based on their eligibility. There can be a stigma with it, different things like that. So when those kiddos are in the lunchroom, we treat them all equally. So any student can come through, but yeah, it is kind of a lot to manage all the eligibilities. So in order to determine the eligibility, parents will fill out an application. Nowadays, it's pretty much all digital. So you can go online, fill out an application, you put in your income, and it determines whether or not you're eligible for free or reduced lunch based on the income guidelines that the USDA has set. So all of those applications are managed, and it determines a percentage. And so that percentage then is used to get your reimbursements. So if you have, your free students, those that qualify for free meals are going to get a higher reimbursement from the state. Those that qualify for reduced meals are going to get a pretty high reimbursement, but not as high as the free meals. And then even those students that don't qualify for free or reduced, the state still reimburses you a little bit for those meals as well. So you still are getting reimbursements from the state for those students that don't qualify, just for coming through your meal, because we want to make sure that all students can have that meal at school. Sometimes the families may miss that threshold by $10. And so just because you miss that threshold by $10, that doesn't mean you might not still be struggling. And so we want to make sure that it is available for everybody, regardless of their eligibility.
And this is only for the actual school year. So like on we're talking about Christmas break, New Year break, all the holiday breaks, summer break. There's nothing like the schools are able to send kids home with stuff for break or anything like that for the program.
So there are other programs as well. So there is a summer feeding program. So you can apply to be on the summer feeding program or the seamless summer option, which means that as a school, you can continue providing meals through the entire summer break. If your school doesn't have the capacity to offer those meals, there are always other schools in the area that offer meals, and any student in the community is welcome to go to that school and eat meals during those breaks. So there are other options as well.
That's awesome. So okay, all these schools that are listening, they're like, wow, this sounds too good to be true, this is amazing. And then they go to try and sign up for it, and they're probably going to go, holy paperwork, this is
Yes.
crazy, I don't want to do this anymore. We'll just have ramen every day for everybody that comes to the school. So how does it look like for somebody to apply? Obviously, I know this is a service you guys provide and offer to help manage that. And I think, remember, correct me if I'm wrong, like at a point to where the school is hopefully not having to even pay for it. It's a way to manage it together to where it's, I think, a win-win for everybody. I thought, but you tell me how it works on y'all's side. But what does it look like for a school to say, yes, I want to do this? What do they have to do?
Yeah, so the first thing you have to do is you have to reach out to your state entity that governs the National School Lunch Program. In some states, that's the Department of Education. In some states, that's the Department of Agriculture. So you have to kind of just do that research first. The USDA website, if you just Google National School Lunch Program and your state, the very first thing that comes up should be the state entity that manages that program. And so what you'll want to do is you'll want to reach out to them and start, find who your rep is in your area. So typically every county or every township, things like that, they have a National School Lunch Program or a child nutrition rep or specialist for that area. And that specialist is there to guide you through the entire process. The process can take from 1 month up to a year, depending on how involved your state is. Every state is a little bit different. Some states make it super easy. You fill out an application, you show them the requirements, and you're done. Some states, they have a lot of hoops for you to jump through. So it just kind of all depends on the state that you live in and what their requirements are. But the cool thing about us here at Vertex is we have schools in every time zone in the United States. And in fact, we even have a school that we are starting to work with in Guam, the island of Guam, which is super cool. And you wouldn't think that, but it's Guam. It's a U.S. territory, so it's governed by the USDA. So the same rules apply there. So we have done research in all of these states. We know these nuances. We can jump through those hoops for you. We'll cross the T's, we'll dot the I's, and save you from having to do all that paperwork. From the initial application, you also have classes that need to be taken. You have to make sure that your menu is nutritionally compliant. So we've set up databases completely from scratch for schools with our nutrition software, where we literally type in all the ingredients, type in the recipes, create the menus for them, and then it comes out to say yes or no, it's nutritionally compliant. And that makes it super easy to give to the state. You have to file claims every month. You have to do direct certification of your students to make sure that those students that are directly certified are receiving the benefits that they deserve. So those would be students that are maybe on SNAP or TANF, Medicaid, those types of things. We want to make sure that those students aren't falling through the cracks. And so we're constantly doing the administration and upkeep to make sure that all of the students are taken care of and that the school isn't going to lose out on any funding because of late claims or something not checked on, some box not checked on the application, all of those different things. It can be pretty tedious.
It sounds so easy. I mean, I feel like I could do this for everybody. It's just
Oh
like
yeah.
filing.
Oh yeah.
You said just, dot some I's, cross some T's is what you said. It just sounded
Yeah,
pretty
right.
simple to me. Like you gotta love the government sometimes for that stuff. Like the programs are all, it's like to say it's a good program, but man, to use it, you feel like you have to hire somebody just to help take advantage of a free program that, is paid for by our taxes, which is just crazy. So
Yeah, and a lot of larger school districts, they'll have a nutrition director that does all of this. And so they're able to afford this director position, with the salary and benefits, and this person takes care of all of that. Well, smaller charter schools, smaller Christian schools, private schools, they don't have the capacity to pay for a full-time nutrition director. Unless that nutrition director is also driving a school bus or, the front office secretary or different things like
sure.
that. So, our services allow for a smaller school to pretty much have a nutrition director without having to take that salary and benefits on board.
Hey, school success makers, Mitchell here. I just want to take a really quick break from the show to give a big, huge shout out to the Herzog Foundation. I absolutely love the Herzog Foundation. I've been friends and partners with them for a couple years now, but we're bringing it to a whole new level. And I'm excited to share that our very own School Success podcast is now featured on the Herzog Foundation Podcast Network. The Herzog Foundation is a powerhouse of resources designed to support schools like yours, from free training events through the Herzog Foundation Institute to their incredible online news publication, The Lion, and of course, our new podcast, Home. They have everything you need to stay informed and inspired. And if you're dreaming of starting your own Christian school or co-op, don't miss their online course, Schoolbox. It's a fantastic resource to help you get started on the right foot. At School Success, we're proud to partner with the Herzog Foundation to bring you these valuable tools and insights. So visit herzogfoundation.com to explore all they have to offer. Trust me, you won't want to miss out on these amazing opportunities for growth and success. And I love all the people over there, and I know you guys will too. So please go check them out, and you won't be disappointed. Now, back to the show. Yeah, and what I would say for you guys, and it's the same for us when we talk to clients about like the marketing stuff that we'll hire, is you can hire an in-house marketing person, which I encourage that sometimes. Like if you have the budget to do that, hire an in-house marketing person, but like that person's working on all this stuff. They're one person. But then if they leave, you're kind of having to scramble to get a new person and get kind of caught back up, where you could hire us and we have like a whole team that's doing all the things usually for the price of a full-time employee. And
Right.
you have a team that's we're not leaving. Like we're here. It's our job to keep up with everything and to stay, keep you competitive. Same thing for you guys. I would say on this is like, yeah, maybe I can hire my own full-time person to do this. But what if they leave? Like then I have to try and find somebody within a month before the next filing happens to keep up with all the paperwork. And God forbid they did it wrong these last couple months, and then I'm having to clean up a mess. Like this is where like I love when people are able to contract out to different companies like yours to say, hey, this is your thing. You're an expert. If I know if one of your team members was to leave, you're going to replace them, and I don't have to worry about that hiring it because I'm hiring you as a company and making sure this is taken care of. So like definitely a win-win. I feel like for both parties to have a company like Vertex to handle the food program for them.
Yeah, exactly. If somebody on my team leaves, I have a whole team of people that are still there doing the same thing. So the knowledge base is always going to be there. You don't have to worry about that knowledge base leaving. In fact, I'm working with a client right now. They just asked us to help them out. Their knowledge base, basically, their person that was doing all of their claims and their school lunch program, left back in May. And so there were so many things that fell through the cracks. And this October 1st is a huge deadline for National School Lunch Program, as it is for a lot of other programs in schools for funding. And so direct certifications need to be done, all of these things. And this school just didn't have the knowledge, didn't even know that these things needed to be done. And thankfully, we were introduced to them and we're like, hey, we can help you with these things. And they were like, yes, please help us. We don't know, our knowledge, our person left. And, so now they don't have to worry about it, and they know it's going to be taken care of.
Perfect. What does it look like to work with Vertex? So if they said, you know what, we don't want to handle this, we want to have Vertex handle it. Like, what does that look like? Where you guys do an initial onboarding call, or is there different levels of working with you where you handle everything, or you just help with coaching, or is there any different levels at how you guys work?
Yeah, great question. So we do a basic administrative package. And with that, we do the first part of it would be our implementation process. And that would be where myself or a member of our team actually go to your campus, no matter where it is. Now, unfortunately, I don't get to travel to Guam, but anywhere in the continental United States, I travel to your campus. I want to meet with your key stakeholders. I want to see how your current operations are. I want to see what your building looks like, if you're currently serving meals, if you're not, how we could do it. I want to meet with your current vendors, all of these things. I will spend the whole day at your campus just getting to know you and getting to know your students, getting to know the mission of your school and how we can best work together. And then from that point, I start reaching out to the state. I start, kind of just picking up at whatever process that school needs us to pick up from. And so we work with that school to integrate their student information system into our POS system. We work to set up a school email for parent correspondence. So if a parent has questions, how do I apply for free and reduced lunch, or where do I find the menu, or things like that, they reach out directly to us. So we even take that parent correspondence off the shoulders of our schools as well. They get our phone number, they get our email address. We work to set up all of the communications that need to go out. So some of the guidelines of the NSLP program are that you need to have a meal policy in place. You need to have a letter sent to parents that promote the program. You need to have letters of eligibility. You need to have letters for direct certification. All of these, we set all of that up behind the scenes. We process all of the applications that come in from your families. We do all of that for you so you don't have to do it. And then throughout the year, we will support by doing the claims. We'll do the direct certifications. We'll do the RFP process for you. If you don't have a vendor or you're not happy for a vendor with your current vendor, we actually will do the RFP process for you. We'll create the RFP according to your state guidelines. We will send it out to different vendors. We'll help you pick the best vendor that's going to be right for your campus. We help you through that entire process. We help you onboard that vendor. And then after that, we make sure that the vendor's following through on what they said they were going to do. We want to make sure that you're getting the best meals possible. Because if I wouldn't eat it, why would the kids want to eat it? We want to make sure you're getting good quality food for a good price. So we help with that process. We help you apply for summer feeding, everything like that. And so most of the administrative stuff is done remotely. And then during the year, then we go back and we visit the campus one more time, and we actually do an on-site audit of the campus. So we want to make sure that everything's going well, that they're following all the guidelines that the state has set forth, because every 5 years, a school will get an administrative review from the state where the state actually comes in and audits them. So what we do is every year we audit that campus so that we can find any red flags before the state finds them, and they don't get any fiscal findings then. So we're all in when it comes to our schools. We want to deliver exceptional service to all of our clients. I treat every school, and my team treats every school like our students are going there, like my own kids are going there. And if I wouldn't trust my kids to participate in that meal program, then why are we doing it at the school? So That's kind of how I think about it.
Well, obviously you guys don't work for free. So I would love to talk just a little bit about this part of like, okay, if a school's like, yeah, we want to hire Vertex, is there an out-of-pocket expense that they have to do up front to hire you guys? Or is it something that can be done on the back end once they get maybe their first reimbursement from the state, if they don't have the capital to start the program, but they really want it and need it? What does that kind of like working relationship with you guys look like?
Yeah. So generally we'll do a contract. We'll do an annual contract. Depending on when the school starts, the contract will usually end June 30th, because that's when typically a fiscal year ends for a school. And with the NSLP program, all of the new things start July 1st as well. And so we'll typically do an annual contract that'll run from July to June. And then that contract, that payment is broken up into monthly payments. So you don't have to pay the whole thing out front. There's just monthly payments. We bill on the first of the month, and then payment is due 30 days after. We've worked with schools. We have a school, for instance, right now that they're going to be opening in the 25-26 school year, and they've asked us to help start their program. But they also know that with starting a new charter school, the funds are, you have to be very, very frugal with your funds and what you're spending them on. And so we're able to help them and make that exception for them of, okay, you can start paying us when you start getting your first reimbursements. So we're going to do those first 2 months of onboarding, in good faith, and then you'll start paying us after you start getting those reimbursements. And that's, it's a specific situation on a per school basis. Of course, being a business, we still have to make sure that we get paid for that work. So if they do not move forward, there's, certain clauses in the contracts and things like that. But we always want to make it as easy as possible for these schools to provide meals to their students, because honestly, that is what it's all about. It's about making sure that the kids are taken care of. And then for the school to be able to run the program in a fiscally responsible way is icing on the cake. But we do work with schools as far as payments. Like I said, it's divided up. We're not going to say, okay, you need to cut us a check for $200,000 right off the bat, and which is not even close to our pricing, by the way. I just want to throw that out there. Not even close. But yeah, we make it affordable. And our services are definitely less than it would be to hire a full-time nutrition director for your campus.
And is this something too where funds are eventually going to disappear from the government, going, oh, all the schools have used it, sorry, it's all gone? Or is there never a cap? Like if somebody doesn't get in time, like, hey, we're full this year, not you guys talking about the government funds, like we have to wait till next year and see if you get in? Or is it kind of like there's no cap at the moment for people being able to get in?
Yeah, as a kid say, no cap. Yeah, sorry, couldn't help it. In fact, we're actually seeing the opposite. So more states are leaning towards universal feeding and universal meals than aren't. So more and more states are opting to kick in extra money so that all students can eat for free. The state of California, the state of Minnesota, there's several states that I believe there's seven or eight states that do universal free meals for all. So no matter what the eligibility of the student, everybody can eat for free. And with that, the USDA has their funding that they do normally, but then the state kicks in the difference to make sure that all of those students can eat. In the state of Pennsylvania has universal free breakfast. And then for those students that qualify for reduced meals in Pennsylvania, they also get free meals. So every state is a little bit different. Same here in Arizona. Any student that gets that qualifies for reduced meals actually can get free meals. So the states kick in those extra funds. And we're seeing that more and more across the country, where more and more people are realizing the importance of meals for these students. And they're realizing that, like I said, sometimes this is the only meal that these students eat. And so if we want to, there's different ways to look at it. But the way that I look at it is my taxes are going to a lot of things that maybe I'm not a huge fan of. But what I am a huge fan of is making sure that all of our students are fed. And if it costs me a couple extra cents to feed students across the country, I think that's well worth it. Because, that money comes from someplace. It's not just coming, it's not growing on trees, as they say. Yeah. But it's so important to feed our students and feed our youth that more and more states are realizing that and jumping on board.
And that's so good. And I agree with you. Like if it's an extra little bit to make sure kids are fed, like 100%, like take my money type of thing, because it's like one of the things I always come back to for this stuff when we're talking about kids is not the kid's fault for like what the situation they're born into, a specific situation. It may not be ideal, but like it's not their fault. So to say like, well, that's not fair that that kid gets that, like, we're talking about kids here. Like it's not their fault. They're there in the situation. They're trying to still learn. They're trying to grow themselves. And so if we can take that stress off their mind to go, hey, you're going to be fed every day here at school. And if that makes them want to go to school even more, like that's also a win-win. Like, hey, yes, education's cool and eating is also here. So
yeah, and it's pizza day.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that included? Is that a nutritious enough though?
It is. It is. Honestly, Papa John's and Domino's both have, they call them smart slices. So they are school nutrition approved pizza that you can serve at school. A lot of the schools will make pizza from scratch as well. That goes against the guidelines. Oh, we have everything. We'll have chicken and waffles. We'll do brunch for lunch. A lot of schools that I work with do orange chicken. People call it Panda Express Day because it smells like Panda Express when you walk in the cafeteria. Oh yeah, there's tons of things that you can eat. And kids really, I mean, they don't care if it's brown rice or white rice. They're just like, ooh, cool, orange chicken.
Yep.
It is what it is. And they smell it. And kids, above all, eat with their eyes first. So if it looks good and smells good, they're going to give it a shot.
Yeah, just before I hopped on this podcast, I was eating my lunch and I made some kale chips, and I do it in the air fryer, and I put some oil on kale, and then I sprinkle some ranch seasoning on it, and then put it in the air fryer. And I really, really like it. I know people are like, hit or miss with kale. My son sitting next to me, he goes, ew, is that seaweed you're eating, Dad? And he's 5, he just turned 5, and I was like, no, it's kale. And I was like, do you want to try one? He goes, no. But I got him to try one. He goes, it's not as bad as I thought it would be. And I was like, but he didn't want any more of it. But yeah, the eyes for sure, because he didn't want to even try it because it looked horrible.
Yep.
Food is an interesting thing. Well,
it is. And that's what we work with schools on too, is we want to make sure that the food looks and smells good. So whether they're cooking on site or they're using a vendor, we always want to make sure that the kids want to eat and that their participation is as high as possible.
That's awesome. Well, I'll ask you one final question before we wrap it up. And it's something, so all these school leaders that are listening, if you had to give them one piece of advice, I know you're not a teacher and an educator in there, but you're serving all these. So if you were like, man, if I'm speaking to these schools, if you could just give a piece of advice that you'd want to encourage them with or to give them, what would that piece of advice be?
One piece of advice. I think listen to the students. The students, as we all know, kids have no filter. They will tell you the truth, no matter what it is. They will tell you the truth of what's going on in their lives, whether they know it or not. It could be with their body language. It could be with the way they talk. It could be with the way they carry themselves. But listen to your kids. That student that's sitting by themselves in the cafeteria, go sit with them. Ask how their day's going. Ask if they like their lunch. Make them feel important. Maybe they had a bad morning at home. Maybe something happened and they just need somebody to talk to. And I think just listening to your students and being aware of changes in those students is super helpful. Sometimes all it takes is for somebody to reach out and say, hey, how's it going? I love your backpack. Or, oh my gosh, Jeannie, your shoes are so cute. Different things like that. And I see it in the cafeterias all the time. I love to call something out on students if it's something they're wearing or if it's something that they're carrying or their smile or, things like that. And just try to make their day with a little comment and listen to them. And I think it goes such a long way. And for all of you educators out there, I also just want to say a huge, huge thank you. Teaching's not an easy gig. I get it. I was actually a high school teacher for 4 years, so I can speak from experience with that. But actually being a school leader, running a school, thank you for just putting yourselves out there for our students and making education such a wonderful thing. Thank you.
I totally agree with that. So if those that are listening want to work with Vertex, what's one of the best ways they can get in touch with you, Kristy?
You can go to our website. It is vertexeducation.com. And on that website, you'll see all of our offerings. You can click on lunch services or NSLP services. You'll find some blogs. You'll find a free NSLP assessment tool. You can fill out that assessment tool and it just asks you questions, how many students do you have? Do you currently serve lunch? Different things like that. And then we'll reach out to you and give you a free assessment of your current meal program and see if there's something that we can help with. So vertexeducation.com is where all the fun is at.
Love it. Well, Kristy, I just want to say thank you to you. Obviously, for giving your time to hop on the podcast today, but you are super fun to talk to and extremely knowledgeable. And I can tell naturally passionate about what you do. You can just feel that right through the screen. I can feel you love what you're doing. You love these students. And so
I do.
that shows. And I just want to encourage you to continue to do what you're doing because you're serving these schools, helping them take advantage of a great program that every school should be using and doing, but they probably, again, can't do it on their own. They need somebody like you. So thank you for what you're doing. So continue to do it and continue to keep that smile on your face. And again, thank you for hopping on the podcast with me today.
Thanks, Mitchell. This was so much fun. I really enjoyed it.
Well, another huge shout out and a thank you to Kristy for taking time and being on the podcast today. I love what they're doing over at Vertex to help everybody with a school lunch program. And I'm hoping you guys were able to learn a ton from this one. And if you're not currently taking advantage of that program, that you will. And if you get stuck or not sure what to do on it, you'll contact Vertex and Kristy and have them help you take advantage of that amazing program that you can have at your school. All right. Well, I mention this every week, but I want to make sure you guys know of these 3 free resources that we have. We want to make sure you're getting plugged in and getting connected with us. And the first one is the podcast that you're listening to right now. School Success Podcast has new episodes dropping every Monday. We want to make sure you're not missing any of those. We have some great guests that give of their time to pour into you guys and to teach you what they know. And we want to make sure that you are learning every single week with great content. So those drop every Monday. So if you're not already a subscriber, we'd love you to subscribe. It's completely free, of course, with new episodes dropping every Monday. And if you haven't yet, leave us a 5-star review if you're loving the content that we're putting out. It does take a lot of time and effort to put these out, but we love you guys and want to make sure you have something to listen to and to learn from. The second free resource is on our website. It is our weekly report that we send out on Mondays called the School Success Report. And you can find that on our website, schoolsuccessmakers.com. In the top right-hand corner, there is a button you can click and enter your email and make sure you're not missing out on that. There's teacher articles, blogs, shout outs. We usually highlight some of the podcast episodes we have, as well as certain people that we love what they're doing. We'll shout out them as well in the newsletter. We want to make sure that you're not missing out on that as well. And the third and final one we like to highlight is, of course, our free Facebook community called School Success Makers, because that's what you guys are. You're all about making your school more successful. So you are school success makers. So go join the School Success Makers community on Facebook. I'm personally in there. Would love to see you in there as well. You can ask questions, get to know other teachers and school leaders that are in our community, and get plugged in. We'd love to see you in there. But we'll be back here, guys, next week with another amazing guest, as usual, on the School Success Podcast. We'll see you then. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of the Herzog Foundation.